So, hey, everybody, Greater Life for All, session one. We've had a brainstorming session already. Mark is going to be joining us pretty soon, and Naya's going to be joining us as well. Ah, there she is. Hi, Naya. Are you with us yet? Hey, how's it going? Nearly. Okay. Brian, you hit off then. Why don't you just say what we're hoping to achieve in this first session? That would be really great.
What I was hoping to achieve is to talk about this greater life for all. What
So,
does that really look
hey,
like?
everybody, Greater
Um,
Life for
uh,
All,
the
session one.
vision
We've had a
itself.
brainstorming session already. Mark is going to be joining us pretty
I
soon,
mean,
and Naya's Hey, hang on a sec. Naya, hi, Naya. You're actually live on the
Hi.
call. Are you with us yet?
I think so.
How's it going? Right, okay. Don't worry. I'll fix it. I'll fix it. Okay. Brian, you hit off then. Why don't you just say sorted?
okay. I, we're talking
That shows
about
that
the
there's a delay. You see, what happens is Naya was watching the call and live on the call, so obviously it was a delay, and that was kind of what we're getting. I'll just post a message to her to let her know that she wants to come back live onto the call. But let's not waste any time, Brian. So you fire away, you crack on. It's over to you.
Okay, so the greater life for all, since we're starting this based on two different paradigms. Number one, the market-based side, but then also the cultural movement side, the social movement side. But I think it really starts there because the social movement side really paints a new story. And that story is built around a consensus because we're trying to duplicate basically what we're already doing, which is building a deliberate space, is open source, is non-hierarchical, and we really want to be able to paint the picture based on what does that story reflect, what are the benefits of that, and it evolves around a social consensus about why this new story is necessary, what are the benefits of it, and then how can it evolve? Like, what is it that we can do currently that give expression to these benefits of this different way of thinking and doing? Because as you do that, it just becomes a lot easier for those uh, who understands that and want to be a part of that revolution. They raise their hands and they come in. This is what in the business nature. This is, I say, separates the difference between buying into something, where it's almost as if you're selling people on something, as opposed to actually people enrolling in a vision. And I think there's a distinct difference between the two. We're looking for people who will actually enroll and understand the need of creating businesses, projects, products, services that actually create greater good for all. And that unique vision in and of itself requires that people really be committed and not just interested. I think there's a distinction between those two. When I'm often dealing with investors and they say this is an interesting idea, as opposed to them saying, you know what, I'm committed to this and let me get due diligence here, I notice a difference in their behaviors.
Yeah.
So when people are only interested, I say, okay, they may do what's necessary. They may even stick with it long enough for it to actually unfold as it needs to unfold, which means they'll embrace the change. But when you're committed to something, everyone knows what it's like to be committed to something, and
Yep.
you're in it for the long haul, regardless of when things go awry, and that's the difference here. But that comes from the story itself, because when each individual unique story links itself up to the big story, which is greater life for all, you're weaving something together that's really magic. And so what I was thinking about was, why not create a campaign and use it as a twofold purpose. Number one, as a market research base, but also you get to collect stories from other people. So simply ask the question, what does greater life for all mean to you? And start collecting these stories and see where they intersect, see what they bring, because now we have key information from people and we can start designing different things around that. The difference with something like this here in creating these live case studies, as I call them, is you're going to the market, and so you already understand, if you will, from a consensus perspective, what it is that people are really desiring to benefit. And if you design things around that, there's nothing to be sold, if you will, on that market-based side. It's just really about doing things that people actually want. This is why in the green culture, when it comes to sustainability and those kinds of things, it hasn't taken off on a global scale as of yet, because people haven't really changed their behaviors that really match, creating products. Because when business is on a competitive plane, so even on a competitive plane, when businesses create products, they don't create products hoping they sell.
Yeah.
They create products based on their research that it will sell. And so if you notice these green products, and everyone's talking about, green this and green that, if you notice, there's not a prevalent model for it, or lots of products and services, because the behaviors have not changed. But yet, once again, we can live a lot longer now. So we're still stuck in this paradox of what it is that we can actually do that really match where people are currently and usher them towards even greater change. And not too many people on a competitive plane understand how to meet people in their current level of abundance. And I think that's where we can make a significant difference. Because we're inviting people just as you are. That is their abundance. We're not saying you have to change to meet any set standard to come into this community. We're embracing you as you are so that you can develop, because once you do that, you're going to want to give back naturally. And we're naturally designed that way. That's one of the things that separates us from all other species. We need connections. We, create meaning out of connections. That's why culture, if you think about it, culture is one of the most significant identifications of the human species. Everyone belongs to a culture. In Africa, we say everyone belongs to a tribe, and those cultures have, certain commonalities. And you look for people that share those commonalities. So, everyone has set of beliefs, customs, language, the arts, the literature, and institutions that shape the culture. And this is what forms our civilization. So if we start to paint the story about a greater life for all civilization that has different customs, different language, different arts, different literature, and even impact the institutions. So impact the families, impact church, politics, education, economics, the entertainment. You can see how this can really just crescendo into this huge, huge phenomenon. And there's many brands out there that they're doing this, but they're doing it from their perspective, and it's it's narrow. Like I say, Life is Good started with two guys in Boston and in the States selling T-shirts. I met them back in 1994 when they were first starting, because I heard their story, and I had just quit medical school then.
Right.
And now this brand is a global brand, and it's all about life is good, creating shared optimism. That's kind of their motto. And so now they form strategic alliances and partnerships with so many different people. You see Life is Good all over the place, and there's many products, and they have a Life is Good festival every year that sells out. So imagine doing that with Greater Life for All, but the immersion experience, where we're just building the cultural story, the cultural history behind what it is that we're actually trying to do. So we're not saying this is a definitive vision, this is what this looks like, but we're collecting these stories as we go, and that allows things to unfold. That reflects what life does. Life unfolds.
That's really exciting, Brian. Now, luckily, we can welcome Mark to the fold. What we agreed last time was that it was up to people to start thinking about how they were going to contribute in any number of ways. So, Mark, do you want to just bring us up to speed on some of the things that you've been working with and some of the thoughts that you've had? Because I know that you've been very active in the last week or so, and then between kind of the individuals doing things and then kind of the painting the picture, we could have some very clear next actions for people by the end of today, for sure. So, Mark, welcome.
Hello.
Actually, how's it going?
Sorry about the delay and everything. It's Sunday. My wife just went to church, and I had to boot up. I was debating about if I was going to be outside or do it inside. But I got a little bird feeder outside, and the birds are been, going like crazy, eating all the food and just making a whole entire noise and everything. So it'd be a little bit too noisy outside. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of experimenting, and I'm developing things within myself, and I'm also fine-tuning people. Like, I feel like, I'm in a symphony or something, or like, and I'm fine-tuning instruments. And I've created, it's kind of funny because I've, part of, like one thing I recently, but before I started the program, but I had in my idea, was to create a talk show, a TV talk show. And it would, I think I talked about this with you, Tom, like early on or whatever, but
yep.
The whole entire precept would be, and I actually spoke to a TV concept producer that liked the idea, and she wanted me to get a little bit more clarity, write a statement, and then she wanted me, but I'll bring it up later, but the whole precept was how I did it. And each week a different, at the time, and it still is, like a different, millionaire. Someone had made, had $1 million company from nothing. And now I can revise it. That's actually, $1 million company that actually brought value, extreme value to other people. And the beginning of the show would be like a short, video about this person, like a biography type of thing, followed by a Q&A, which would be the host of the show asking, questions of the, the guest on the show about how they did it and bringing out different things that people can latch onto. And it would be kind of an inspirational thing. And then the person that was funding the concept company made a suggestion, because my suggestion was different, but her suggestion was actually really cool, would be two random but not random audience participants would be chosen to get a one-on-one mentoring with this millionaire coach, millionaire person. And the person will get to have, a few questions that they could ask this person. The person can, ask them. And we would want, basically, the person that, the guest, to have some sort of, like, mini vision, whatever, So it would be a chance for, obviously people to get one-on-one access to someone that's, achieved something. And it would be like an inspiration type of thing. And actually, it's a very lovely idea. But it got me thinking about, like, well, that's something that needs more work and development, but why not do it now? And it happened by accident. I was doing a kind of like a how-to thing with Ruth, and my intuition, because I'm playing with my intuition over here, kind of told me, why don't we just do like an off-the-cuff, because like I had Ruth be in control of the recording of the making a live broadcast, So this is going to tie into what we're talking about over here. So I had Ruth tie into the broadcast. She was the one that I was practicing how to do a broadcast, and my intuition told me, why don't we just try and do a Q&A here about Ruth and ask questions. And it was totally unscripted, unexpected, and it was most enjoyable. And I think it brought joy to Ruth as well. I think that she shared like something how she had, whatever. But the bottom line is that it brought joy. Being unscripted, impromptu, asking questions about someone's inner values, aligning with people, fine-tuning, and it came up. So then I decided, you know what, the idea came to me, and I shared about it, starting a tea with series. So it'd be like me having a cup of tea, having a chat with different people, but it's totally unscripted, impromptu. Everything is unexpected. I'm just taking a book, because I've been studying crystals a long time ago, but I put it down for a good, I've been playing with crystals a good 4 or 5 years, so, but I worked with them extensively for a while before that. But I never actually did anything with it, you know? And it kind of got me thinking that all through life we pick up things, and it's kind of, it might be random or whatever, and lo and behold, everything comes together. Like, I could have thrown out these crystals when I moved, because I wasn't using them. They're just sitting in a thing. And then my wife is my best life coach, because she bought me like a nice glass, you know, little vase to put them in. So now I can put them in there, you know? And all of a sudden, I'm on a phone with Karan, and something told my intuition told me, because I have a good intuition, and also crystals are energy, and I also believe that, you know, crystals are associated with the person that chose it. And I just decided to play, like make believe. I mean, I'm going on a whim over here. So I'm making believe that I'm like this crystal, like, you know, reader. And I'm just, all I'm having is a book and a crystal and a pendulum. And I'm asking Karan questions, and I'm actually reading, he picked a crystal, reading it from a book, the different characters and properties that these people wrote, what they believe about the crystal. And I'm asking questions from this reading that words are pulling, like, it's kind of like words are just coming to me. And it's weird, but it's like something associates with the person. Actually, it's coming through that the person actually associates with those words. So I'm fine-tuning people, and we all have within us like these different gifts. But the thing is that we think it's something random, like these crystals I had all these years, or like these things and everything that we have. And how many times do we have all these things and we're just collecting and we're just buying stuff? We don't know why, but we feel moved to buy certain things, and we use it once or twice, and then it just sits there, you know. And why not, like, make believe that I'm doing something, like, you know, experimenting. And so I'm experimenting with this stuff, and in experimenting, actually aligning with people and bringing out their inner goodness, unscripted. And a lot of things that when people go out and do things, when you go out and, we're going to participate in this Greater Life for All project, which is every one of us bringing our own awesomeness cells and, you know, having our own ability to create things and things that I think that we all have inside of us. And I'm feeling right now that so far I had 3 calls, 2 of them official Tea With conversations. Last night was with Naya, who literally I had her in tears. And, you know, it was just such a most awesome moment. So I'm experimenting and playing around with, you know, something, but in turn I'm also bringing up people's things. And I don't want to, you know, get too much into what because I want to keep everything like kind of like a surprise. I told Naya like last night, certain things we're going to have you share, certain things are not, because the last thing I want to do is I want to have people's scripts start to, you know, get in. And once the script gets in or whatever, the answers aren't genuine and person actually, you know, doesn't do so well. But so far, you know, I've kept it unscripted. And the whole thing is that, you know, through doing these series, I want to start working with people and start fine-tuning their inner abilities. And so it's actually working very well. I'm gonna start like fine-tuning people's stuff, you know, what they have, and then because a lot of people get afraid to take action, and I think that if we could all make believe it first, it will take that fear out of us. And I'm just trying to find a way to get people to be unscripted so that they have a point of reference to refer to. So everybody's going to have their own awesomeness. So I'll turn it over to whoever's next.
Cheers, Mark. Thanks for that. It's brilliant. Brian, can you follow up then on the things that you've been saying about the painting the story? And because both of you are on the same wavelength there. Mark's going directly to people right away in the group and actually starting to get them to tell their story through the Tea With series. And how does that fit in with, you know, individuals painting their own picture and painting the collective picture with what you were saying earlier on?
Well, you know, it's directly, I would say, integrated within it. You know, when I look at what's out there right now, like, for instance, Jonathan Fields, which is where I got the idea for the Greater Life for All Living Creed, he has a project called the Good Life Project. Wonderful site. And Jonathan is an attorney, quit his six-figure attorney job, built one of the largest yoga studio kind of franchises in New York City. So, you know, you have this left-brain, logical person that, you know, just created this whole different expression of yoga. Wrote a book about uncertainty because he's a serial entrepreneur, so he lives in that space.
Yeah.
But with his Good Life Project, he just goes out and create these videos, exactly what Mark is doing. And I mean, he's interviewed some pretty significant people. But at the end of each video, this is his thing. He says the name of this project is called the Good Life Project. So when I offer that statement to you, what does that mean? So he's collecting their story. And so now he's done, if you go to his site, you'll see all the videos there and all the different peoples he's interviewed. And I mean, the stories that they bring are incredible. Jonathan's website designer introduced me to him, so I had a conversation with him. But he has a live immersion event that sells out every year, and they go to different locations. So he's just now, that is his thing. His thing is about what does good life look like, and how do we create it. But he's not saying that he's coming to the table with the end-all vision and version of good life. He's saying, how can we create this together? And it's going to be uniquely different for everyone. There's another site out there like Udemy called Create Live. And those classes are actually live. The people that create those courses, they go there live. Once again, this is exactly what Mark is doing. So we can take the same kind of concepts of why I'm mentioning this. We're taking what's out there on a competitive plane. We're applying it to our purposes and to our needs. And so that's how we can play in that arena, but not be of it, because we're operating from a different agenda and a different platform underneath. And we can take the same thing that Mark is doing, apply it to the Greater Life for All, and says, you know, if we're creating this Greater Life for All, what does that look like? What value do you believe that you're creating? What value do you believe that you're bringing to the larger context of society? Why is that even important to you? These are some key questions, because if we're going to be the example, be the solution, these things have to kind of start to unravel and unfold. And sometimes it's not so much that people are even afraid of starting. I think sometimes it's a matter of people not honoring their abundance. Because, you know, oftentimes when I'm dealing with myself, or even when I'm dealing with others, if things have not worked out for you in a long time, like I said, this project that I was working on here just failed miserably. But one of the things that in closing that I had to tell everyone is, what we have to be satisfied with is something has brought each of you this far. Something has brought me this far. Live from that abundance, and that's what I call a recovery strategy, so you can pick up the broken pieces and move on. You don't have to pitch a tent in misery. It's okay if that's your genuine feeling that you're experiencing right now, but let's not pitch a tent there and stay there forever. Let's honor what has brought us this far. That is your abundance, because if you start there, you can be rooted and very grounded, and you can move on and then not be so heady and not be so, you know, too esoteric. It's a very genuine experience, because not everything is going to start out based on your happiness per se. some things out of sheer frustration. I started many projects and businesses because the competitive playing establishment wasn't doing it, and it was out of sheer frustration.
Yes.
So the what Mark is doing is spot on, and it certainly will help just honor people in their current abundance so that they can say, you know what, I don't have to be perfect. The word perfect comes from a root word meaning complete. So you have to honor that you're already perfect in your current state, and you can always evolve, because everything about life is all about growth, it's all about expansion, and it's all about that abundance, the abundance living. That's what life and life more abundant is all about. So you're already perfect enough.
Yeah.
To start. But I think sometimes when you have gone through life and you haven't been trained to honor those things, you can miss that. And so instead of taking an appointed time, you see things as disappointment, which in and of itself can be an appointed time to learn something new, to learn something fresh, so that you can move on. But
Brilliant.
if you can't see that, however, you can't, it's quite difficult to start that process. So what Mark is doing is helping people say, this is my abundance. That sense of awareness is the essence of change. If you talk to people in the change management theory, that's the cornerstone of change. All starts with awareness. You can't change what you don't own. So if you don't own it, there's nothing else to change. So everything starts with the awareness.
Yeah.
And once you create that awareness, then the actions, the commitment to honoring that awareness and what it needs to, what you need to do to actually make the change stick. That's where you need the support. That's where the community can help. And we have some pretty awesome people that as I listen to and go back and catch up on these one-on-ones, and in my mind, just the dialogue and the inquiry alone. In my mind, they're ready.
Yes.
I listen to people like Paul, and Paul has some quite deep questions. I don't know if that's because of his attorney training, but Paul, in my mind, that guy is ready to go. Now, he may be, because he is a PhD student, so they don't like for you to work outside of your PhD studies. So, but even still, that's why I said this community here will honor people like that if they can't come in and start a business straight away and give something back. He can come in and lend his expertise. He can come in and be an advisor and a mentor, just what Mark was saying. And by the time he actually do build his business, he may not want to just give 10%. He may want to give 20. He may want to give 30. And so that's what makes this model, I think, so exciting, because it doesn't penalize people. It invites you just the way you are, and I think that's key to all of this here. It's a low barrier to entry to start.
Yes.
And we're creating these mechanisms through the interviews, embracing people the way they are, honoring their abundance. All of these things are low barrier entries to start, because you can get in and start straight away. You don't have to have much. You just need to show up, like be present.
It's good stuff, Brian. One of the challenges of having a group like this is that everyone has got a zillion ideas. So where do we get the time for all of us to communicate effectively? Because this is essentially a communication session. We've all been thinking independently, probably non-stop since the last session. I don't know when it was, Tuesday or Wednesday night, and we've now come to this forum where we've already got things to say. It's going to be difficult for us to everything in an hour. So I'm thinking already that we should probably do more. Maybe we should almost have, okay, this is going to be, it's still going to be a bit of a brainstorming session, but maybe this is, Brian, your session for you to paint your picture. Okay, next one we do, or another one we'll do later, Mark, your chance. Then we'll do one with Sam, then we'll do one with me, and I think that would be really nice, because already I'm thinking, I mean, it's just one thing I want to say before I pass it over to Mark, is that the opportunities for us to disrupt and improve in fact, disrupt is even not a great word, because it implies a little bit of competitive thinking there. But it's like, for us, there's so many industries out there that have got that are wide open, and we talked a little bit about this. We talked about education, we talked about politics, we talked about energy, we talked about health. Massive opportunities. But if we can all think about working and improving one small aspect of these things in our own way, we can make enormous differences collectively. And certainly right now there's a bunch of people out there who are still thinking of improving things, but they're maybe still thinking about doing it because there's money in it. And I think that the way to do it really is for us to say, look, we do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because over the long term, over the 50, 100, 1,000 year time frame, it's a sensible thing to be doing. And it might be that we can't immediately see how to make a lot of income out of it in the short term. But I don't think that that should stop people. For example, everybody knows, anyone who's got half a brain knows really, that the solar technology is possible. It's possible to give everybody enough energy just through purely solar. And everyone says, well, no, it totally is. Half of the world is in sunlight all the time, right? Don't tell me if there wasn't enough. Say if we were going to be invaded by Martians or something like that. Don't tell me that the scientists of the world couldn't unite and find a way to spend some of the resources we've got to make a unified electric grid so that the half of the world that's in sunlight could always power the entirety of the globe. That would be totally possible. A unified, look, we've already done it with the internet. We've got a unified connection. Every single person is connected to every single other person in the world who's on the internet. There's no reason why we can't do that with electricity. Very simple. The technology is there. The skill is there. The challenge is it would take more than 50 years on current estimates to start getting a return on the investment. So who's going to work on the 50-year timescale?
Right.
It's going to be us. We're going to be the only people that can work on the 50-year timescale. And we obviously, as soon as we start mobilizing ingenuity, and as soon as we start mobilizing sort of a prize-based approach to things, then we'll find a way to pay for it. And I don't think that's difficult at all, like Diamandis has done. We can do that sort of stuff. But I think that we don't just have to think about being awesome ourselves and just being really happy and being amazing and being just living the best lives we can out of our script and just influencing everybody and being the example. We do that, of course, but that isn't the limit of it. It's not just the metaphysical that we operate on. We can literally create, and using literally in the real sense, using the word literally in the literal sense, we can actually create the change in these massive distributed areas that so far have had no unified common sense approach at a global level. They've still got sovereign nations' vested interests. They've still got organization companies, multinational companies' vested interests. Well, why would we do that if we could supply energy for free for everybody once it's set up? Why would we do that when we can at the moment make a huge amount of money by parceling out energy to everybody and metering it and getting them to pay monthly for it? You see, there's no vested interest for these disparate groups because their accounting system, and this is really simple, their accounting system hasn't worked out the true cost of getting the natural resources out of the earth and using them up. And everyone says, okay, well, I'm not sure that global warming is happening, or yes, it is happening. Basically, people fall into one of two camps on this. And the point is they're getting sidelined by the fact that that's not the issue. Whether or not burning fossil fuels actually raises the temperature of the planet and creates global warming, whether or not is totally irrelevant. It might be, it might not be. The point is, we are using up something which we are not replacing quickly enough. So it doesn't matter whether it has an additional side effect, which means that it's bad for us to exist as humans with a raising temperature. It is long-term, over the 50, the 100, the 500, the 1,000-year scale, it is an article of insanity to be using up something faster than you can replace it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where the innovation comes in. That's the pain that I deal with every day because in the impact investing space right now, there's a need to truly measure. Impact investors are unique from just investors because their goal is about impact. And so it's not just investing for a return on investment, but also the social good, as everyone says, is important. And so they're looking at it from what they call P3, people, planet, profit, and specifically in that order. The challenge with most of them is, with most of us, because I'm in that space, is there's no true measurements there. That's really measuring the impact that you're having because they're focusing on the externalities and not necessarily the intrinsic value. So in other words, they're still using components of the traditional economic model, which measures things based on wealth, which is often associated with money, instead of measuring it from the well-being of the populace, well-being of the citizenry. That's uniquely different.
Yes.
And so because the metrics don't exist, I don't know who said this quote, but there's a quote that says, a long time of not thinking a thing wrong has the appearance of being right. And so we've been doing things for so long in the wrong way that people think it is right. And so when a new establishment comes, it's met with resistance. Because I've been talking about this value science and how we can actually measure this, and people are looking at me as, as if I, just took off their shirt or something. And I said, well, my goodness, why not give it a try? We don't have to make it the model, but why not see if there's some kind of impact there? So that's, when I came to this whole project, my thing was to create a space with like-minded people that understand these kinds of things, because I've always functioned very well in mastermind groups where it starts with forums just like this here, where we build the story and we make that story the foundation of what we're doing and what we're about. Because think about this, all corporations have a vision and mission statement, and none of the employees can cite it and none of them understand what it means because it's not theirs. There's no ownership there. We're trying to create a space, deliberate space, where everyone has ownership. Everyone has ownership. And because of that, there's a vested interest for that community, for that space to grow. And then we can, usher that out into the larger context. But everyone must have ownership there. So that means everyone must weave together or be a part of the story. So that's why we need to understand what other people's version, if you will, of Greater Life for All really is, because then we can really build a business model that supports it. We can identify the key elements with regards to the players, the added values, what are the parameters, if you will, that keeps us in check, keep us greater, creating this Greater Life for All. What tactics will we use that helps us to create Greater Life for All? And then the scope. So it helps us with the strategy. It helps us with aligning with strategic alliances and partnerships so that we can even scale the model itself. But it starts with that story, and because that's part of that vision and the mission.
Brian, just on that, I just want to say, not only does it make total sense to me, but it's actually our failing. The only thing that could prevent something like this from working is if we fail to build an effective metaphor or a story for which people can understand it. I mean, and I think this is the problem. People haven't realized that if you really want to get people to follow you and to know what you're doing and to talk about it, you've got to give them like a dinner party format, little 30-second piece which actually communicates exactly what it is. And for the last 25 years, when I've been teaching, and teaching individuals, teaching students, teaching adults, teaching everybody, I've always realized that unless you've got a metaphor which helps them then communicate it to other people, it won't be very effective. And I think that's what hits home totally with me, Brian, what you're saying. Is like this whole idea of building a story. It can't be a bullshit political mission statement story. It can't be a manifesto that, like, really, you can't be told in a 30-second dinner party conversation. Oh, so what are you doing? Oh, well, you know, I'm part of the Greater Life for All project. What's that? Poof, hit them with the story. Whatever it is, the metaphors that you say, well, you know how, blah, 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 what it is. Now, it's up to us to create that and create lots and lots of different ones that are perfectly going to nutshell everything that we're doing, because in Seth Godin's purple cow analogy, he says that the reason a purple cow is remarkable is because people will then remark on it. So what we want to do is we want to take that sort of functionality of remarkable. If we're doing something remarkable and people are remarking on it and talking about it, then that will do all our work for us, really. So it's really worth spending time on this. And you've almost got to say, well, we're not going to stop doing things. Mark is going to, in a second, he's going to talk about some of the things that he can suggest to help people build these seeds in others about what the possible contribution is going to be. So we still do all that all the while. We don't have to wait till we get the story perfect. We don't have to wait to get the most amazing metaphor out there. But the better we can use our metaphysical powers to create this story, the better we can do that job, so that everybody, whether you're a dinner lady in a school, or whether you're a big shot celebrity, or you're a politician, or you're a doctor, or you're a mum, or even a 6-year-old, that everybody knows the whole point of what we're doing, and they can encapsulate it in just a very, very simple story. If we do that well, it'll be a lot easier.
Yes,
right.
A lot easier.
Mark, I'm going to pull you in now, sir, to talk about some of the things that you said would be useful for planting seeds in people.
Yes, I wanted to share really quickly about something that occurred to me also. But everybody, in one way or another, affects each other through the choices that they make and the actions that they do or don't take. And I'll just give a quick example. I had a consultant that started a job a week and a half ago, and he was terminated a week and a half later. And the stories were totally different. And my hunch told me that the candidate story was, because there's always a level of truism that the script actually prevails, reveals whatever. But my hunch was to believe the candidate, They said that he had technology skills for the job. He said that there was 2 employees over there that, felt threatened by him and, made it very difficult for him and ultimately got him terminated. And his story is actually the correct story. And because my director for my branch is very close friends with the vice president of the IT division. So the vice president told my director that basically is Tweedledee and Tweedledum that got your guy cut. And I was talking to the consultant, and we had kind of like a conversation. I always check in with them like on the second day, and everything was fine. And in actuality, after talking to him to get released, he told me he kind of felt that things weren't right on the second day. And I said, listen, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
It's your job to tell me, because my director is close friends with vice president. This could never have happened. But he chose not to tell me. He thought that it would work out on its own. But the point is that if the choices that we do or don't do, we actually don't involve, we're still creating a result. And the bottom line is, what result do you want in your life? And, we have intuition. I'm learning to trust my intuition, my hunch, my guts, my aha moments, whatever. I'm learning to trust them more. I'm being more aware of them. And I'm asking myself better questions, and I'm making better choices based upon my intuition. Obviously, my script gets involved, but let's just talk about the intuition. So what could one do to get involved? Well, one thing I told this candidate, and one thing I tell people, whatever, and had awareness is that you're actually representing like who you are. The choices that you make or don't make is actually what's going to happen. You could have changed the environment over there by saying something, and making a choice to trust that we would have you back or whatever. Not that it was going to work out, but at least make the attempt. So if you're feeling something that's inside of you about something that you like or something you want to do, start to hone in on what your intuition is telling you, and look around you, become more aware. So obviously, be aware of like what it is that your message or what your intuition is telling you. Notice what's going around you. Notice like things and stuff. Ask yourself questions. Well, or the script or whatever. How come I'm not doing this? I mean, I feel inwardly guided to do this, and then start to play around with it and practice. Start experimenting with the environment that you're in, because it's good to experiment with people that kind of like whatever, or play around with like make believe. Like when we're kids, like it was so fun to make believe and pretend. And this is like where the WhatsApp group and is a very good playground or sandbox. It's a safe environment to start making believe or whatever your intuition is telling you, and contribute more. Like whatever hunches that you have, start to articulate it. Because the thing is that we have a hunch and an aha moment. Aha moment is more feeling than a hunch. A hunch, I think, is more subtle than a aha moment. Aha moment is like more like a snap, like get in a shower, or whatever, bam. But a hunch is more like quiet, and the script has more control over hunches and aha moments.
Yeah.
But you start feeling these things, and when you all feel it, like start to trust in this. And what I'm saying is that Greater Life for All, like everybody has their interpretation, and I like what was shared about, I'm a part of the Greater Life for All project. That's I could say that's my job. And in a way, I've been bringing it out more to more people, and it's everybody has their own interpretation about it. And that's, like Brian said, everybody has their own interpretation. We can just collect data, find out what their interpretation is of it, because everything is different. Everybody has a different interpretation of Greater Life for All, but, what is your contribution to Greater Life for All? Because the thing is that it's kind of like, like every choice that we make, there's no good or bad, but there's always a result. And somebody's always going to be affected, either yourself because you're making a choice, or someone else because they might be asking you for a favor sometimes. It's your choice to participate or whatever. It's every choice you make. It's like you're affecting somebody. And the thing is that what kind of choices do you want to make? So like like we think, like our thoughts. Our thoughts create our own reality, and now I'm becoming more and more believer of it, than anything else, because every time I find my thoughts going a certain way, and actually my reality is actually being shifted in that direction. Like if I'm thinking negative thoughts because of a setback, oh my God, it manifests itself into reality. I'm negative.
Yeah.
And I experienced that. And so, we have to be aware of our thoughts. We have to be aware and direct our thoughts, and in the fact that Greater Life for All, we can all be a part of it, And it's like it's something that you're intuitively guided inside. So trust your intuition. It's inside of you. You all have it. Like when we were kids, we made believe, pretend. Every kid. I love playing make believe and pretending. And I love seeing kids playing make believe and pretending, because you actually make. But the whole thing is that why not believe? Why not go right to belief? I believe. Like, I want to have this TV show, and here I am. I'm doing this little series. I'm making believe, but I'm believing because I'm having proof. It's there. You could actually go on YouTube and have a video. I'm interviewing somebody. It's me talking to somebody else, an interview. Like on the news. I was watching the news. I did this news show really like on Sunday, and they interview really interesting people. And these guys wrote this series called Freakonomics. They're just very smart guys that wound up together in circumstance making these awesomest stuff. They trusted. It wasn't their division. The mission just happened. But people put people together to accumulate, to do certain actions, and just in your work environment, if you're working in a job, start trusting your intuition more, making believe something, practicing with people. Don't let your script stop you from making a little choice. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're with, start trusting your intuition, seeing where to guide you, and seeing what people are reactions are, being aware of what the reactions are, what you're doing. The ones to give you more feedback that are positive, then obviously they're open to it, and you can work with those. The ones that aren't so open and positive, then you just don't really work with them that much, because eventually, get it, you want to bring with the people the ones that are open for it, because you want you're like you're testing yourself. Like part of I'm not going long over here, but part of like in recovery, there's a thing called the amends. The amends is not making an apology; it's kind of like making things right. And one of the suggestions it's kind of written subtly, but it's a big suggestion. Is always start with the easy ones and work your way to the harder ones. Because if you go right to the hard ones, like like someone who really did a lot of damage to it or whatever, you try and make it right, they're not going to be open to it because you're not going to be ready for it, number one. And then and the result is going to probably be very damaging to yourself. You might pick up a drink or something like that. So you build up tolerance. You just go to the easy ones. I went to like my closest family first, and I built my way up. And it took me a number of years.
I'm just going to have to wrap you up there because I've got to shoot off. So
all right. Okay.
I said earlier on, we could all talk for like just months on this, but the summary of that is, you've given people lots of things to do at the metaphysical level through their thoughts and through their actions. So they trust their intuition, do stuff, be aware of things. So and also, I suppose what you're saying is that actually think that it's going to be exactly what you want it to be. Act. When you say making believe, actually think right now and act right now as if you've already made a huge contribution to this Greater Life for All project, and it's already worked, and we have created Greater Life for All. So that's amazing. Brian, I'm just going to ask you to, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go to Sam first. Sam, why don't you give us a 30-second burst of energy about, what your experiences are of this, and then I'll go to Brian for a wrap-up.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks everybody for being here. I think this is a really, really, really exciting project. And from my perspective, every single human being, whether they're conscious of it or not, is seeking growth and aliveness. Just that ability to be their best. And I feel like society up to this point has been perfect for its time, but it really doesn't give a lot of people a very constructive avenue to do that without taking from others. And so what I'm really excited about is giving people a sandbox to really just be the best versions of themselves, and knowing in doing that they're going to give more life to all. Whether they actively participate in our movement or not, they're going to be doing that. So I really like what you guys are talking about, and Brian, I really vibe with your vision, man, and I think that's the place to start, because if we have an effective story to tell, it allows people to build their own stories within that story. And to be honest with you, that's one of the aspects that I'm really excited, because for me personally, I don't exactly know how my contribution fits in, but I know I want to be involved in it. And so that's my intention, and that's where I'm coming from.
Fantastic. Wow. Okay, thanks for that, Sam. Brian, why don't you wrap up next actions for people, next actions for us, and you got about a minute, I think, to do it.
All right. Well, I would say this. I think we need to flush out the individual and the collective story. So I was thinking perhaps we can do some case studies, since Mark is already out there, very interactive with the majority of people, starting with the shows. Why not create these case studies for Greater Life for All? Because remember, desire comes first, then the recognition of the power within. Yeah. So all that Mark was talking about with regards to how instinct moves to more distinct characteristics, that's part of stories, because what we're trying to do is get people, as I say, to honor that abundance, but we're ushering in this ideal of Greater Life for All, and I see it as being masters of conditions when they show up, because you can be a master of a condition or you can be a victim. I can tell you one is a lot more enjoyable than the other. They both will get you to move, but one is a lot more enjoyable than others. So I think if we can start creating these case studies about Greater Life for All, we don't have to know exactly what that means and all that it means. This is what we're trying to unfold. but people can start to explore it, if you will, through the case studies, because then we also have testimonies as we're moving forward. So I think that's a logical next step to help unfold the story even more.
That's amazing. Guys, it's fantastic. Mark, thanks for those ideas. Thanks for the fact that you're actually out there doing it already. Sam and Brian and, well, and from me, I'm just, it is really exciting that this is, I mean, it's already happened at the metaphysical level. We just got to make it happen in a physical level. And that's a lot easier, actually. All the real hard work is the work at the level of thought, because that's where the script can get you most easily. It can't get you so easily when you're actually doing stuff, and so it will stop most people before they even ever get started, because it won't let them even think that it's possible, won't let them believe that we can take on these seemingly insurmountable issues and actually do something like change the idea of sovereign nations. I still think it's crazy, the fact that a human can't just live where they want to. Yeah. It's just amazing. You know, it's astonishing. You know, birds can fly wherever they bloody well like. Right, humans, advanced species, we actually someone said, well, no, so you're Irish, you're French, you're British, whatever, you can't live somewhere else. I mean, these things would seem to be really quite astonishing things to take on, but there's nothing that hasn't been possible with the humans' collective metaphysical powers, you know, which is astonishing. So guys, we're here for a reason. Thanks for that, yeah, I'll see you on the chat groups of the world. All right, cheers, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Nice one, everyone. Bye.